About 10 years ago, my wife and I were on a road trip around Nova Scotia, camping in public and private campgrounds along the way. One night, we were miles away from any real campground, so we asked at a restaurant if there was anywhere we could camp for free for the night. We were told about a public park on a cliff overlooking the ocean near Antigonish. We drove up there and we were the only ones, besides an older couple in a fifth wheel. There was an old lighthouse right there near the parking lot, and we set up our tent on the grass near our car at the base of the lighthouse. Pretty bad idea, as all night long, the light would blink on for about 2 seconds, then off for 3, over and over all night long. Around 2 in the morning, we started to hear very strange noises coming from the woods that surrounded the clearing on all sides except for the cliff side. Moaning, humming, crying type noises. Very strange. That, coupled with the on and off blinking of the lighthouse, made for a very unsettling night. The walls of the tent would light up, and we kept expecting to see the silhouette of an old sea captain hovering over our tent. While backpacking the Appalachian Trail in northern PA, a friend and I just finished hiking up a very large hill and were ready for lunch. We had planned on eating at a shelter that was another 2 miles down and up another hill. After some discussion, we decided to eat at the shelter as there would be water. Well, as we arrive at the shelter, we come across who we initially think is another hiker, but no, this guy was just carrying an old school backpack and was digging for crumbs out of the bottom of a Fritos bag, so he seemed out of place. We asked if he was backpacking or day hiking. Never making eye contact, he mutters out backpacking. We then asked if he was section hiking or through hiking, as in doing the entire trail. He looks at us with this weird look and says, I'm just hiking through. After a little bit of talking and avoiding all of our questions, he just quickly said, I gotta go. As he packed his bag, we asked what his trail name was so we could look out for him on log books. He clearly had no idea what we were talking about, and this struck us odd as anyone, because who hikes the knows what a trail name is, and usually has one they go by. After sort of explaining what he meant, he said, oh right. It's Hatchet, which was obviously a load of crap because the guy was holding a pickaxe in his hand when he said this. Well, we continued hiking and we reached our camping spot. We got settled for the night while I'm woken by Hatchet rustling through my backpack. Now my friend and I both use hammocks, and I had my backpack wrapped around the tree my hammock was hanging on, so he ended up shaking my entire hammock. I screamed, hey, and he looked at my hammock, stared right at me for a good second, then bolted. By the time I got out of hammock, he was nowhere to be seen. Turned out he had stole a pack of tuna from my bag and a couple granola bars from my buddies. Never saw him again. The weird part was we got back into town and ate lunch at a diner. Turns out old Hatchet was on the run. There was a wanted poster hanging up on the door. Turns out 2 weeks prior he had mugged a couple people, leaving one guy pretty bloody. The whole thing was pretty freaky. We gave our statement to the police but never heard if they caught him or not. I went camping with my husband and our 2 kids. At night we were sitting at the picnic table playing cards, and beetles of all different types kept falling from the trees, flying around us, crawling up the table, etc. They kept getting bigger and more weird looking. My daughters were freaking out to the point of almost crying, so we decided to get into the tent. When I got in and I turned around, my daughters screamed that I had a beetle on my back. I wasn't freaked, but I told them to brush it off, but they wouldn't come near me. When my husband came and I turned around and asked him to get it off, he screamed and wouldn't get it off either. At that point I knew something totally huge and freaky was crawling on me, so I ripped off my sweatshirt and threw it outside. I didn't talk to my husband for the rest of the night. Around 18 months ago, When my girlfriend and I first got together, we went camping regularly with a couple of friends in a large ancient forest. We would go in, set the tent up in the light, have a barbecue and some beers, then sleep. Well, our friends would. We went several weeks running. Same routine, different friends each time, etc. until one night we decided to leave the tent and return later so we could get some more supplies. We returned to the tent at dusk, but found a stick figure made from twigs at the entrance of the tent. We smoked a bit, had some booze. One of our friends, who reluctantly joined us on this occasion, turned strange. He disappeared into the woods, which we found strange as he was petrified on the way into the woods, and then we could hear nothing but singing for at least an hour. He eventually returned, and we continued to party until it started to rain heavily, at which point we decided to call it a night. We woke up in the morning and decided to pack the tent down. It eventually became obvious that the trees surrounding our tent had the same shape as the figure carved into the bark. We pretty much rushed to get out of there and came across a still burning pit of fire surrounded by felled trees. That was the final straw, so we ran the remaining mile back to my car. I have to add that the woods I'm talking about has a history of deaths and suicide, and has also had reports of witchcraft too. In fact, the surrounding 20 miles has quite a lot of stuff like that. Just after finishing our GSCEs, a group of my friends and I went camping. The weather was naff, and on the whole huge campground there was pretty much just us and a group of Irish scouts. So we all ended up hanging out together along with the youngish guys who ran all the activities on the site. Technically, any activities had to be booked and paid for in advance, but these guys were bored, so they let us do anything that didn't involve expensive equipment for free. On our last night, they took us on the pathetically unscary ghost walk. It was so wussy that we took over in the end and started telling them creepy stories. When we were all pretty much ready for bed, our group went across the field to our tents, all laughing and joking, until one of the other girls stopped still and said loudly, "What's that in front of our tent?" There was a short, white figure pacing in front of one of the tents, about 30 feet away from us. It was dark, but we could all see it as a solid-looking shape. One of the girls screamed and it stopped pacing and rushed at us. I have never run faster in my life. I lost my shoes halfway across the field and kept going straight onto the tarmac road and down to the activities buildings. We went back with about 20 scouts and some burly guys with big lanterns, but there was nothing to be seen. Who knows, it was probably just mist or something, but it was shit scary at the time. Hasn't put me off camping though.